Okay, it's Ches, page 242. And the situation of what we learned yesterday, that the high level in explaining what it means that they're a clever person, a smart person, the pikach. He says, I'd rather choose a king, not the ministers. So the lowest level is not choosing the stars, the constellations, and the moon and the forces of nature. The higher level is not choosing the 70 angels. The higher level is not even choosing malachim of Kedusha, not even choosing the spheres, but to say that I just want the king himself. So now in Ches, the Rebbe will elaborate a little bit on what that means. Yesh Loimar. So it's page 242, the one that's Hebrew English. You have the one that's just Hebrew alone. It's Beis Ches, which is on page, well, it depends which kind of book you have, Kuf Vov. Yesh Loimar, She'in Zem. This choice and this level of choosing that was just mentioned is called Avad Mili B'Shamayim Limchalei Chapatzti. You know, there are many levels in Avas Hashem, love for Hashem. In fact, you know, Rabbi Yael Khan worked for years on an encyclopedia of Chassidus. So an encyclopedia works in the order of the alphabet. And the Jewish encyclopedia is the order of the alphabets. So he worked on this many years, collecting information from Chassidus, putting it in a structure like an encyclopedia. He didn't get very far. I think he never got out of Aleph. But one of the things that are covered in Aleph is Ava, love for Hashem. And it brings down so many different levels of love for Hashem that are brought down in Chassidus. Even in Tanya, it talks about a few levels of love for Hashem. And in many Memorim, this level of love for Hashem is called the love of Mili B'Shamayim V'Imchalei Chapatzti Ba'aretz. The words are words from Tehillim, but this is the way the Alter Rebbe explained those words. Mili B'Shamayim, who do I have in the heavens? The Imcha, and besides you, Lechafasti, I desire nothing. So if you take a look at Hayom Yom, could they made a copy here? Hayom Yom, if you look at Hayom Yom, at the end, the last Hayom Yom, I think I put it here on page 30. Well, page 30 is the Pasuk in Tehillim. But in the Hayom Yom, the Rebbe chose to put this at the last page on the Hayom Yom, which is, I guess, a current events right now in the door. I understand. Learning Hayom Yom. So the last Hayom Yom are these words that the Tzemach Tzedek said that from time to time the Alter Rebbe would immerse himself in the deepest level of dveikus, of attachment to Hashem. And when that would happen, he would say these words in Yiddish. Ich will say God, which is nothing. I want nothing. Ich will nicht den Gan Eden. I am not desiring your Gan Eden. I don't want your Olam Haba. Ich will nicht dich allein. I want nothing else but you yourself. In other words, let's think for a moment, what are we talking about? The light of Hashem that is revealed and manifest in Gan Eden is, of course, something very high. Person works a whole life, learning Torah, does mitzvahs, goes through all the struggles of life, and the reward is in Gan Eden. The neshamas in Gan Eden are there, and some of their neshamas are there for hundreds of years, some are there for thousands of years. And what are they doing? They're basking in the presence of Hashem. Hashem's light is shining. And in Gan Eden, there's a tremendous level of pleasure that's beyond anything we could describe and imagine. In fact, one of the things that are brought out to sort of get a little bit of an idea of the pleasure that exists in Gan Eden is a story in Gemara. There's a story in Gemara that there was someone by the name of Elisha ben Avuya. Very unusual incident that happened. He was a Tana, one of the Tanoim. He was the teacher of Rabbi Meir. And yet something happened, and because of that something, he lost his amunah in Hashem. And he went off not to believe. So, not going into the story of why it happened, how could such thing be, but that's what had happened. And when he went off and he lived his life that way, and as the Neshama came up to Shemayim, there was a dilemma. The dilemma was he can't go into Gan Eden because of what happened. He went off and he became a non-believer. On the other hand, he can't go into Gehenna because for so many years he was such a great person, learned so much Torah. In fact, even after it happened, his quotes are still found in Gemara. Some places they quote him by his name, maybe, and some places they quote him not by his name, they call him Acher, means the other one, because the Gemara didn't want to give substance to a person that went off from Yiddishkeit. So the Gemara says that Rabbi Meir, he was a very dedicated student of his. In fact, Rabbi Meir, even after he deviated, he went off the Torah way, he still would go to him to learn Torah. No, none of the sages did that. How can we learn Torah for someone who went off? So the Gemara says Rabbi Meir was on a different level. He was able to throw out the pits, throw out the shells, and eat the fruit. In other words, he was able to listen to a person like that and not accept all the things which are unacceptable, inappropriate, and just get the positive things out of what he says. For other people, this wouldn't be possible because you would end up being influenced by his negative ideas. But Rabbi Meir was an exception. And when he passed away, Rabbi Meir said that when his time comes to go up there, being that he's not in Gan Eden, not in Gehenna, so he can't go to Gan Eden because he never went through the purifying process, the cleansing process. He's going to see to it that he will go to Gehenna and he'll go through the cleansing process, and that will enable him to go into Gan Eden. And that's what happened, the Gemara says. After he passed away, they saw smoke rising from his grave, which meant that he was in a place where he was going through his cleansing process. There was someone who lived 100 years later, and he said that when he's going to go up there, he's going to do everything he can to get him to enter Gan Eden. And when that sage passed away, the smoke stopped. He went into Gan Eden. So he was 100 years going through this process in order to go into Gan Eden. And what's the process? It's a painful process. I know in Chassidus we don't focus on it, but just for the sake of understanding the greatness of Gan Eden, we have to talk a little bit about the suffering in Gehenna. So it's brought down in Tanya, that the Ramban says that if a person would, God forbid, suffer, the worst kind of suffering for 70 years, it wouldn't compare to a moment in the suffering in Gehenna. So here a person suffering for 100 years, so he can go to Gan Eden and the lowest level of Gan Eden. Obviously, after this, it wasn't suitable to go to a higher level. What we learn from this is that the pleasure of Gan Eden is so amazing, and the light of Hashem that shines in Gan Eden is so amazing, that it was worth it for him to go through all that pain, all that suffering, to get that pleasure of Gan Eden for eternity. So Gan Eden, the level of godliness that's shining there is I guess we can say it's out of this world, right? That's Gan Eden. And the next thing is Olam Haba. When Mashiach comes, that's even greater. And we learned this in the Maimer before. Imagine There are neshamas that are having this pleasure in Gan Eden for thousands of years. The others, the Nevi'im, all the tzaddikim that live, they're in Gan Eden for thousands of years and enjoying this pleasure. And when Mashiach comes, they're going to come back down to this physical world to experience Olam Haba, the future redemption. That must mean that the pleasure of the future redemption is infinitely greater than thousands of years of pleasure in Gan Eden. So Alter Rebbe says, I'm not interested in Gan Eden, and I'm not interested in Olam Haba. That's not the pleasure I want. I want you, yourself, Hashem. And the Alter Rebbe had comprehended the nature of the revelation. In other words, if someone like us would say, I'm not interested in Gan Eden, we don't know what we're talking about. So when you say, I don't care for it, it's you don't know what the pleasure is to say, I don't care for it. But the Alter Rebbe knew what it is, and he surely understood it. And nevertheless, this is what he said, that this is not what I want. I want more. We have to change the books 1 second, 243. And Alter Rebbe knew this properly. Page 243. Hasaga amitis, the true understanding. In a way that his mind was able to grasp it. And the concept and the understanding of the greatness of Gan Eden really penetrated his mind. He really got it. Nevertheless, Alter Rebbe says, it's not what he wants. All he wants is dich alein, you alone, Hashem, your essence, yourself. That's what I want. The words are beautiful, but to understand what does it mean in a more practical way, that's a little bit more, need a little bit more explanation. Of course, we're not on that level anywhere near, so we don't understand how to apply this. What does it mean for the Alter Rebbe? But one way of explaining it is like this. We find stories of tzaddikim, true tzaddikim, that their life ended because they expired out of love for Hashem. One of them was two of them, Nadav and Avihu, the two sons of Aaron, that we know that the reason why they died was because they were so overcome with love for Hashem, and they so much wanted to be close to Hashem that their neshama left their body. And then we find another story about 4 people that it says they went into the deep secrets of Kabbalah. And one of them was Ben Azai, Hitzitz V'mes. He saw the greatness and the beauty of the depth of what's going on in the spiritual realm, that his neshama craved it so much that he passed out. His neshama left the body. Rabbi Akiva was the one out of the 4 people that he also entered the same sort of experience. He went through it, but he didn't allow his neshama to leave the body. So what's happening is like this. Those tzaddikim that, and there's more stories of tzaddikim that almost happened to them. What do you mean it happened to them? In other words, we can't imagine, we can't understand. But when a person experiences pleasure like that, it's such pleasure that they just can't detach themselves. They can't let go. And therefore, the neshama ends up going up and not coming back down into the body. So what about the other tzaddikim? How do they manage to maintain themselves in the body?
Holding the table.
What?
Holding the table.
Hold on to the table, yeah. Right, we don't know exactly the reason, but they say that we know that the Rebbe, and not only the Rebbe, all the Rebbes of Chabad, when they would say a mimer, they would hold a piece of cloth in their head, handkerchief. And in fact, Rabbi Grona would tell the story that the first year, no one knew if the Rebbe was going to say a mimer or not. But he was up there near the Rebbe, and he noticed the Rebbe took out a handkerchief. So he knew the Rebbe was going to say a mimer. But apparently this is by all the Rabbeim. And I think the way it's explained, I don't know if it comes from a Rebbe, or this is the way Chassidim explained it, that saying a mimer is an extremely high spiritual experience. And the Rebbe holds on to a physical object as an anchor that chas v'shalom, nothing should happen in terms of the neshama leaving the body. It should be balanced and grounded and so on. But it's not just grounded because we have to hold on, I want to be alive. It's the recognition that over there, I am able to appreciate and enjoy and have the pleasure of vast delight of Hashem. And down here, when I do Torah mitzvahs in the physical world, I am embracing the essence of Hashem. And that's what helps the person hold on, because I'd rather have the essence than all that. So if you think in terms of where is Hashem more revealed, up there or down here, it's not even a question, it's up there. And the higher up you go, the more revealed it is. Nevertheless, where do you have the opportunity to embrace the essence of Hashem? Dafka down here where he's not revealed. So it means like this, the essence has an advantage, and it's the essence, it's not just the light. The light of Hashem, the manifestation of Hashem, has the advantage that it's open and it's revealed, and I can experience it, and it gives me great pleasure, but it's not the essence. So just like with the story with the palace of the king, when you see magnificent beauty in a palace, and you see the gold and the silver and the diamond and the gems and the way things are put together, it has such an impact on a person. It's so overwhelming that you forget about everything else. You just get drawn into it. You're under a spell when you see the beauty of it. And the same thing spiritually. And therefore, you'd rather want to go there than to be involved with just shaking a lulav. How could you compare shaking a lulav to being revealed to the greatest, deepest secrets of creation, of Hashem? But when a person says, I'm not interested in the light and the manifestation, I want the essence of Hashem, so that person has the power to overcome that craving, overcome that desire, and hold on to maintain his presence here in this physical world, in the physical body. So that's one way of understanding it. Let me do the moment here. And it's interesting to know that when the Alter Rebbe was arrested, we know that the false accusation was that he wants to make a revolution, overthrow the Tsar, and he wants to become the king himself. That's what they wrote. And they supported it by different things that he did, because he was giving money to the Jews who lived in Israel. And at that time, Israel was under the Turkish ruling, and the Turks were against the Russians. So they fabricated a whole story. One of the things that they said was, it's known that the Alter Rebbe had a certain condition, that the skin, the flesh of his nose kept peeling. The flesh of the nose, the skin, just kept, like it was falling out, and there was a certain illness, certain condition, and they couldn't understand why it's happening. So the doctors said then that they can't explain, it's not a physical thing. I guess they explained what we call today psychosomatic. They said that he has a desire for something which is impossible to get, and that's causing, that strong, intense desire is causing this deficiency in his body. So they said, that proves it. He wants to become the king, and that's the desire that he can't fulfill, and that's why it's happening to him. But the real reason was because he wanted to connect to the essence of Hashem, which you can't, because connecting to the essence, meaning that chas v'shalom, then the person loses himself completely. So therefore, this is considered something which expressed the highest level of love for Hashem, that you're ready to give up all the pleasures of the world, talking about all the spiritual pleasures in the world, and just embrace Hashem. But that embrace comes from, the way we understand it now, is from a physical act, like we said yesterday, davening mincha, making a bracha, giving tzedakah, doing a favor for another person physically, giving him food, and that connects us to the essence. Yeah.
I got confused. Didn't we say that the essence is like here and like in the Lula and the Esrog, and what would have the person?
Right. That's the way they were able to overcome this desire. In essence, the essence is the source of all the light. So that should mean that a person the neshama should aspire, say, I just want to become one with my source, nothing, I don't care about anything. And one of the ways that the neshama is able to overcome that is by recognizing the essence is actually here. They tell a story with the Untitled Rebbe, that the Untitled Rebbe was once traveling, and he was on his way back home to the city of Lubavitch. And then he tells the wagon driver, faster. So he starts making the horses go faster. He says, no, faster, faster, faster. Yeah, out of breath, faster, faster, faster. Finally gets to Lubavitch. You can imagine what's going on. And the Untitled Rebbe jumps off the wagon, runs into the shul, grabs the Gemara and starts learning. Obviously, he knew Torah in his head as well. In fact, it says that the shul by the Untitled Rebbe was a very big shul. And he said that when he walked in the door of the shul till he got to his place, in his mind, he was able to review an entire tractate of the Gemara, just from walking from here to there. So he could have studied it in his head, but he obviously was overcome with some sort of a craving for Hashem, to the point that he thought, as a Shabbat could chas v'shalom, so he needed to connect to that essence. That's taking a physical Gemara, physical Torah, and learning it here in the physical, and that's how you connect. So it's true that you connect to the essence through this, but when you talk about something physical, you don't see what the neshama sees up there in Gan Eden. Over there it's revealed, here it's hidden, but I know it's the essence, but it's hidden. Over there it's the light of Hashem, but it's revealed. Now, I'll give you a mashal for this. I must say the mashal is not in Chassidus. It's a homemade mashal. Came out of my dreams. But I just feel it's a little bit of a mashal to understand what we're talking about. Imagine that somebody, a person who was a brilliant person, brilliant in every field of wisdom that you can imagine. And this person wrote down his thoughts, his feelings, his findings in books, volumes of books in Torah, volumes of books in other fields of wisdom. He was also a person that had a very good sense of humor, so he wrote volumes of books with his humor that he wrote down. And then he went on a trip, and unfortunately never came back, and nobody knew what happened to him, whether he was alive, something happened, he's not alive, was he captured, was he lost? In those days, communication was not like today, so nobody knew what happened. Of course, the family was devastated, but the children were very young children, and the mother wanted the children to know their father, which they didn't get a chance to know him. So she showed them the books, and she would study the books with them. And that's how they get to see how he thought about Torah, what he thought about this, what he thought about that, his stories, which were humorous stories. And by reading these books, and they would study them and actually have these discussions about them and debates about them, this is the way they really got connected to his mind, to his way of thinking, to his personality. It all came out of the books. They've been doing this for 10 years. One day, somebody comes running into the house, at the top of the lungs, he's alive, he's alive, he's alive. He just came with the boat. Obviously, he never died. He was either lost or captured somewhere, and now he's coming home, and he's alive. Could you imagine that these children, who by now are grown up, would say, okay, right now, we're in the middle of something here, a very deep point, and I don't want to interrupt because I'm going to lose the momentum, I'm going to lose the flow, and when I finish this chapter, I'm going to go greet him. I guarantee you that his wife is not going to wait for that. She's going to run to go greet him. Now, when she runs to greet him, where's she running? To hear more wisdom? To hear a little bit more humor? To get another shot in the pasuk? Where's she running?
For him.
For him. But the him that she's going to see is going to be a nose, not wisdom. He's not going to start telling her, oh, I want to tell you my thoughts. That's called the essence. That's the essence. And I should give away all the books, 100 volumes of books to get the essence. If someone would tell her, forget about him, I have more books for you. She'd say, throw away all the books. I want the essence. In a sense, what are the books? The books is the person, but this is a manifestation of the person. This is his wisdom. This is his love. This is his humor. These are his feelings. It's all there, but it's not the essence. The essence is the physical person and the physical body that you see. And that doesn't manifest all this wisdom, which in Chassidus we call the light that you see in all the books. So in a certain sense, this is the same thing. In Gan Eden, that's where Hashem's light shines. the wisdom, understanding Hashem, the depth of Hashem, the midas of Hashem, the attributes, everything is shining in such a way that the pleasure is infinite pleasure. But it's not the essence. And the essence of Hashem is in two places. One place is all the way up, higher than all the worlds, which is the answer to your question that would cause him to expire. Or the essence of Hashem is all the way down in the physical, just like here, it's in the physical body, it's in the physical Gemara, the physical Tefillin, the physical mezuzah, the physical tzitzis, the physical candle lighting. This is the essence of Hashem. It always came to my mind that it's really an amazing thing that there's no other place where you could learn so much about the spiritual worlds and the levels in the spiritual worlds, and to understand, to appreciate Yiddishkeit more. It's not just a thing that you do, but more about the depth of Yiddishkeit, the spirituality in Yiddishkeit, the love, the fear, the feelings, the emotions, the pleasure that you have in Hashem. That's what Chassidus talks about. So there's probably no place else where you learn so much and you get such an understanding of the deeper pleasure there is in godliness than you get in Chassidus. On the other hand, in fact, there are people that are not even aware, but they just know you got to do this, you got to do that. You don't do this, you don't do that. And that's the Yiddishkeit base level. In Chassidus, it's way, way beyond base level. On the other hand, there's probably no place that brings out the infinite greatness of doing a physical act, a simple physical act without any other feeling, just the act itself, that this is the essence of Hashem, as Moshe is explained also in the same Chassidus. So basically, this is in a sense what the Alter Rebbe is saying. I don't want the light of Hashem. I don't want the manifestation of Hashem. I want the essence of Hashem, where in essence that would mean to go beyond all those levels, just become included in Hashem. And for a person like that, he won't have that test of losing it because he knows that the essence of Hashem is here in this physical world. So let's continue. 243. Afal became, we're on page 243. That Alter Rebbe, when he said, I don't want the pleasure of Gan Eden, he knew what he was talking about. He knew what that pleasure is. He wasn't like people like ourselves when we say, not Gan Eden, but we don't even understand the greatness of that pleasure. He knew it, he experienced it, but he said, that's not what I want. All I want is you alone. So there's something to add here, another thing. There's even more depth to what we just said. It looks like it never ends, but that's what it is. Those levels that exist in the evolvement of all the worlds, and even the levels that are above the worlds, page 244, who the word sphera comes from the word shining. In fact, it comes from the same word like in Hebrew, Even Sapir, which is the same as in English, a sapphire stone, which means a stone that shines. So sapir comes from the word shining. It means it shines and it's clear. In other words, it's transparent. Spheres are transparent. When you look at a sphere, I mean, when I say look, I don't mean physically look, but a sphere is transparent. Godliness manifests through the sphere in an open way. It doesn't conceal God's light at all. And the light that comes from Hashem through the spheres is openly infinite light of Hashem, the Or Ein Sof. It's clear that it's Or Ein Sof just being transmitted through them. And especially the light of the spheres. Through the light of the spheres, it reveals and it's transparent that the light that's higher than the spheres also shines in them. Especially on all the higher levels. Which means if somebody would say, I want to connect to the spheres, it's more than just spheres. These spheres openly connect to Hashem. So really, connecting to the spheres is connecting to Hashem, because Hashem is, the spheres are transparent, which means Hashem's presence and light shines clearly through the spheres. It's not like other things that some degree of concealment is there. And nevertheless, even though the spheres are so much one with Hashem, he still says, that's not what I want. I want the king himself, as he is, not through the spheres. And that's the way we can also explain the Alter Rebbe's words. He said like this, Ich will nicht dein Gan Eden, ich will nicht dein Olam Haba. He didn't say, I don't want Gan Eden, or I don't want the world to come. He said, I don't want your Gan Eden, and I don't want your Olam Haba. Why did he add the word your? He means to say, page 246, Hagam she Gan Eden ve'Olam Haba. Dein Gan Eden and Olam Haba. In addition to the fact that these are levels of light of Hashem that's so high, it's thine, it's yours, which means it's clear that it's yours. It doesn't in any way block the presence of Hashem. It's not seen and perceived in any way as anything separate or independent. So therefore, through them, I could completely, totally connect to Hashem. Nevertheless, he still says, that's not what I want. What I want is pure Atzmus Ein Sof, pure essence of Hashem. Not even as he manifests in the most clear, transparent way, which is the spheres. Yeah.
How someone is connecting to the spheres?
What does it mean to connect to the spheres?
Yeah.
I guess it means by learning about them and understanding them and seeing the greatness of Hashem through understanding Chochmah and Bina and Chesed and Gevurah, and that means I'm connecting to the spheres. When I connect to the spheres, meaning learning about them, learning about the greatness, I'm not thinking about the great. That's when you learn about the greatness of a malach. A malach is also connected to Hashem, but we still see a malach as some sort of identity, where there's something a little bit separate from Hashem in some degree. But spheres is Hashem's attributes. Think of it of a person. When you talk about a person and you are thinking about the person's kindness, even though you're talking about the kindness of the person, not the person himself, but when you talk about the kindness of the person, this gives you a feeling and understanding of the person. When we talk about malachim, they're also Hashem's messengers and everything, but a malach still represents some sort of an entity, an identity outside of Hashem to some degree. But when we talk about Hashem's spheres, no, that is Hashem himself. It's just Hashem manifesting himself through wisdom, through kindness, through gvura, through teferes. But still, when you think about this, it means, so again, it means learning about it, understanding it, appreciating it, and having the pleasure of realizing Hashem's greatness by realizing the greatness of the spheres. So it's still not the essence of Hashem. It's how Hashem manifests through the spheres.
So it's not a weighted sorrow when you try to connect to Hashem through the sphere?
Well, generally speaking, that's what we do when we're learning about Hashem, when we learn about Chassidus. We're not just learning about the essence of Hashem, we are learning about the spheres. And we try to understand the greatness of the spheres and how they're unlimited and how that affects the world. And by learning all that, that's how we get an understanding to some degree of Hashem himself. In other words, we are doing that. Exactly. It's a contracted version of Hashem for us to comprehend and understand. There's a famous expression in Gemara where it says, in Hebrew, "B'mokim she'ata moitzi gedulasei, sham ata moitzi anven sunasei," which means when you see the greatness of Hashem, you're actually seeing His humility. What does that mean? Greatness, humility. It means when we talk about the greatness of Hashem, for Hashem, it's Him lowering Himself, contracting Himself, and investing Himself in a limited way so that we can comprehend Him. Otherwise, we had no approach to Him because He's infinite and we're finite. So Hashem manifests Himself in a finite way. But His essence is actually absolute infinite.
So with those separate, for all the worlds or just afterwards that you're talking about?
What?
The Sephiros.
Right.
For all the worlds, that's transparent or just the world of Chassidus?
it's most transparent in Atzilus. In the lower world, even the spheres are not as transparent. But in Atzilus, they're totally transparent. And that's why it's called a world of unity, because there's no separateness there. And nevertheless, it's still not what I want, because I want the pure essence of Hashem, not as He manifests through the spheres. Now, another example where this could come out to be practical, even though it's not, the Alter Rebbe is in a different place, but how could we apply it to ourselves along this idea? Practical being of a person, where do you feel more pleasure? In doing mitzvahs or studying? The person who's intellectual, intelligent, and you learn, and you understand something, it's like, wow, people's faces shine, they brighten up when they understand something, and especially if it's deep and you understand more, that's so much more pleasurable. Sometimes there are people that they love learning so much, and the pleasure of learning is so amazing that because of that, they don't have so much time and patience to do the practical, technical sort of details. This is just technical. And definitely, they don't have any patience to be so particular. Why now? Wash my hands, make sure it goes till here, it doesn't go to there, dry it this way, and wipe it this way. And okay, what's the point? What's behind washing? What's it all about spiritually? And you're not focused so much on the technicalities. But the truth is, in that technical act of the mitzvah, that's where the essence is.
Why? Because it's physical.
Because it's physical, and that's where Hashem invested His essence, right?
But then, isn't it, even in like Lucid Tanya, it said like Hashem puts His essence in studying Torah, and that's higher than that. Right?
Right. So when we say higher, it means in terms of what I feel consciously, what I experience pleasure consciously, you experience more conscious pleasure in Torah than in the mitzvahs. But where really do I have the essence? There's so many mamar that they talk about the advantage of mitzvahs over Torah. The next one talks about Torah over mitzvahs. The third one talks about mitzvahs over Torah. So the truth is, there are a lot of advantages in Torah over mitzvahs, and there are mitzvahs over Torah. But in general, this is the general idea. That Torah, in terms of consciousness, conscious pleasure, conscious feeling of elevation, that's in Torah much more than mitzvahs, because mitzvahs are a physical act. But the essence of Hashem is more in the mitzvahs. And on the other hand, we also need to do the Torah study. You know why? Because otherwise we would never appreciate the mitzvahs the way they are.
But studying Torah is a mitzvah itself.
Studying Torah is a mitzvah, that's true. But there's two parts to studying Torah. One as a mitzvah and one just as to gain knowledge. It's a little bit different. There's a discussion about that in the Sikhs. But just to give you an example of this, I'm going to finish with this if Mrs. Yaffe is going to let me. He's here, the teacher's here? No, okay. So I don't know if I told you the story that there was a chassid, that he was worked very much on himself, on self-refinement. And for years, he didn't sleep in a bed and he didn't eat properly and he was just up nights and he really every moment of his life was directed towards self-refinement. He was an older man and he was sitting at a little gathering with other chassidim and he sighed and he said, I really regret all these 40 years that I worked so hard. The other chassid looks at him and says, regret? I mean, there are people who don't want to work the hard work, but after doing the hard work, why would you regret it? She says, because after all the work I did, I'm sure I weakened my body somewhere, someplace. I'm not as strong and as healthy as I could have been. And if I would be stronger and healthier, I would have lived at least another day, which means I would put on tefillin one more time. Putting on tefillin in this physical world one time is greater than 40 years of self-refinement. So the other chassid said, it's true. But it takes 40 years of self-refinement to appreciate one-time tefillin the way you appreciate it now. Understand what I'm saying? So therefore, we need both. We need the physical act, that's the essence of Hashem, but through the learning and the experiencing, the pleasure, all that, that allows us to appreciate the physical act of the mitzvahs the way we're supposed to appreciate. To be continued. Okay. You're welcome. You're welcome.